And interestingly enough, I've got Paul Reynolds, who's also from a Cramlington business from the Renown estate agents. You're the owner there, Paul.
Yeah, that's me. I've been there a long time.
Have you?
Yeah.
How long have you been there now?
Well, I started in Cramlington in 1977.
Wow.
Although I wasn't working at Renown then, it was Hindmarsh and Partners.
Right.
I went to be manager there in 77 June. So
Right.
It's quite a while.
Quite a while back.
Quite a while ago.
How does somebody become an estate agent? Was that something that you'd always wanted to do at school? Because I remember when I was at school, probably around about the same time. People wanted to be a train driver. They wanted to be a policeman. They wanted to be a sailor. But I never knew any of my mates at school who wanted to deliberately set out to be an estate agent.
Well, it's not really something I wanted to do either. It was just an advert in the Evening Chronicle, and they were looking for a trainee manager for an estate agent. And I thought, well, sounds interesting. I'll go along and see what happened.
Yeah.
And actually, they took a few guys on at the same time. So we ended up with 5. It was a firm that was expanding at the time.
Right.
So we ended up with 5 new guys, and basically I learned from scratch. So yeah, a little bit hairy in the first few years.
I don't know. I think estate agents have they got a bad reputation generally, but are they scorned by the public?
Well, yeah, I think you're probably right. But the thing with me is that I've been around for a long time, and it's what you call a family business.
Yeah.
My daughter works for me, and my granddaughter comes in on a Saturday and does some photocopying.
All right.
And having been there for such a long time, we're now probably dealing with the 3rd generation of the same family.
Yeah.
So we're not quite the sort of here today, gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
People that you sometimes find kicking around.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of kind of interest in property, isn't there? I mean, a lot of programs on the telly which kind of highlight the work that I guess that estate agents do. These property valuers, the property development type programs that are on the telly.
Yeah, that's right.
Phil and Kirsty, those kind of programs.
That's right. Well, when I first started out, most estate agents, if you call them that, were actually qualified surveyors.
Yeah.
And generally were chartered surveyors, and a chartered surveyor would sort of work his sort of couple of hours in the morning, go for a coffee, take a long lunch, come back and fit a few jobs in the middle. But they were always generally qualified people. This changed probably in the 80s when the banks became interested in estate agency.
Yeah.
And really what they wanted was not estate agents as such. They wanted mortgages and insurance business. And they sort of revolutionised, in their eyes, the business and made it more greedy. And
Right.
I think that's when things started to change. But in actual fact, they've all pretty well now all dipped out of it because they weren't very good at it. And it's gone back to where it was.
All right, okay. So what kind of things does an estate agent do these days? Is it just about selling property, letting property, or is it a bit more than that?
Well, that's a big part of it, but it's generally an advice shop combined with sort of social work department generally, because people, they need advice.
Yeah.
They need someone who knows what they're doing, whether it's a solicitor or a doctor, any sort of professional or accountant. People do need to be given advice when they are doing something. It's all very well Googling what's wrong with you and what you need to do to put it right, but it's actually what we do is based on many years of experience. So I have people coming in, they're in debt, they're not sure what to do, they maybe lost their job, they're having a family, but they need more space, we've got no more money. They may have a mortgage that needs to be realigned. All sorts of reasons, really. Death, obviously, divorce.
Yeah.
Repossessions, we get a lot of those coming around as well.
Right.
So, yeah.
You're kind of in the middle. So if somebody wants to sell the property, they'll come along to you and you'll prepare the details of the property for sale, and then you'll get prospective buyers coming to you.
Yeah.
How do you kind of link in with like people who provide mortgages, for example, and mortgage advice? Do you do that kind of thing?
We do. You've got to be qualified to give financial advice now.
Yeah. Kind of regulated, isn't it, by FSA?
It is. Well, many moons ago, I actually qualified as a financial advisor.
Right.
I thought to do my job properly, then I should be able to advise on mortgages and life insurance particularly.
Yeah.
And I used to get involved with that a lot, but I sort of gave it up a few years ago. Became much more regulated, and it was more time consuming really, so I decided to pack that in. So what we do now is refer to independent advisors. So if anyone needs any mortgage advice or anything to do with that sort of thing, we have a couple of guys that we refer to who we trust, that we've known a long time. Generally, ex-building society people,
Yeah.
who know what they're doing.
Yeah, and you'd have sort of like quite close relationships with kind of legal firms as well in terms of the conveyance.
Yeah, we do. Solicitors, obviously, we liaise with solicitors a lot. You don't need to have a solicitor or an estate agent to move house. You can do it yourself, but it's complicated. Most people rely on professional advice. So we deal with solicitors. Obviously, if you're buying a house, you need a solicitor. You're selling, you need a solicitor. But you can't use the same one.
Yeah.
So the buyer and the seller have got to be represented by different companies.
Yeah, you've mentioned Renown is a kind of a family business.
Yeah.
Have you just got the one base in Cramlington? Or
Yeah, we have. A few years ago, I tried Bedlington,
Right.
in the depths of the Depression,
Yeah.
a few years ago, and quickly realised that it wasn't going to happen.
Right.
And I found that spreading yourself a little bit too thinly
Yeah.
was going to be a problem, so we sort of retracted back. And to be fair, we've got that much going on in Cramlington. It's more than a full-time job.
Yeah, I mean, how do you kind of compete? Because there's obviously like the high street chains or ones that have got. Don't want to kind of mention any other names, but there's like the high street kind of chains that are out there, which are kind of national companies, and then you've got the growth of the kind of the online estate agents now as well. How do you kind of carve out your particular niche?
Well, if you sort of took a cake and tried to cut it into bits,
Yeah.
At the moment, the what you call high street agent, the guy with an office in your town,
Yeah.
is probably accounting for something like 80% of sales that
Yeah.
happen. The 20% is either national companies who don't maybe have an office in the town but have got a national presence.
Yeah.
And then probably between 5 and 8% in the northeast, you've got online estate agents and one or two well-known names that people see the annoying adverts on the television,
Yeah.
telling you that they don't really charge any money. The difference between someone like me and someone like that is that we do have a local expertise. We are there. If you say, I live at 21 such and such a street in Cramlington, I'll tell you what sort of house it is, when it was built, what it's worth, which way the garden faces, how many bedrooms it's got. So, you are dealing with a very, very local thing, where the national ones say that they've got a local expert, but he might live 50 miles away and he needs an A to Z to find your house, or a sat-nav these days.
Yeah.
And we don't charge if we don't sell. So if you take me on and we can't sell your house, you don't get a bill at the end of it.
Yeah.
But with most of the online estate agents, you pay up front, or you pay after a period of time, whether you sell or you don't. So in my mind, if I could say charge £800-900 and then say, right, I'll see if I can sell your house, but I've got your money. If I put 4 or 5 houses a week on the market, I'm doing all right.
Yeah. Have you seen much change kind of in the housing marketplace lately? I know, when I kind of drive around at the moment, there's new developments going up all over the place. In Cramlington, for example, just off Station Road, there's a kind of a big development, taking place there. As you kind of go out of Cramlington, up towards where the Snowy Owl is,
Yeah.
Big kind of housing development there, and just about everywhere I drive now, there seems to
There's
be
a new estate.
There's a new estate.
Yeah, it's
popping up.
right, really. I think the builders are pushing very hard. They sites all over the place, as you say, in Cramlington. We've got the site near the roundabout at Station Road,
Yeah.
which is Persimmon and Bellway. Then if you go over towards the Snowy Owl, it's a huge site over there.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the southwest sector.
Yeah.
And that's going to take years and years to build. It's going to be a bit like Great Parkish.
Yeah.
So it's going to be quite a big...
It's going to take you right out to Orchard.
Yeah, it is. And probably coming across to the railway line.
Yeah.
And then there's another site which is, it's sort of in dispute. It was refused by the council, but the builders have come back again with another application for a site where the new fire station is. between East and West Hertford.
Yeah.
And that's pretty huge with another 500 houses. Now,
Yeah.
in my head, we don't have the infrastructure to cope with that.
Yeah.
And I think this is the reason that council said no to it. But obviously the builders are the builder. They want to build as many as they can.
Are they going to push hard, aren't they?
Well, I think they will, but that was designated as industrial land. So to me, well, why isn't it industrial land? We need factories, we need jobs. We can't just replace everything with houses. We've already had one in Cramlington, which was up on the Bassington Manor estate, which was developed about 3 to 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, that was the old Wilkinson Sword factory, I think.
Sword up there,
if we're going to have jobs coming into Cramlington, where are you going to put the jobs?
Yeah, it was. That's always a kind of a strange development because you still, your houses are kind of backing on to the industrial estate as well. Still, I mean, it's still there, isn't it?
It's still there, and the field behind it is empty now, and it's up for sale. So I don't know what's going to be there. Could be more houses. Could be I don't know. Could be a garage. Could be anything you like.
It's interesting time. Has there been a kind of drive for more rental properties as well? People buying to rent and
one of the things that happened, obviously, the Northern Rock crash in 2007-8 was a game changer. Before that, it was not easy to get a mortgage. Obviously, you've got to have a good credit record. Yeah. But you could get 100% or 95% mortgage quite easily. But when the crash happened, they sort of drew the horns in. You've got to have a 25% deposit. You've got to have been in a job for 3 years. You've got to have a squeaky clean credit rating. And it made it much more difficult for people to get a mortgage. Self-employed plasterer, taxi driver, anyone like that who's not really got a steady job, shall we say. They're making good money, but it's not, a pension job. And those guys found it difficult to get a mortgage after the crash. And on top of that, you got more what you call dysfunctional families now, who are, they're not the typical get married, have 2.4 kids and save a deposit up. It's much more a now society. Can I have it now? Can I have it tomorrow? I don't want to wait any longer than that. Yeah. So, rentals are pushing on, despite the government trying to, spoil it. There's a massive demand for any family houses.
Okay. All right, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take a little bit of a break and we'll have your first song. This was the first song you bought.
It was, it was. I remember I was about 14 or 15 and I bought it.
Definitely giving your age away.
I bought it at Windows in town, and I took it home, and I had a radiogram in the front room at home, and I said to my dad, I bought this record. He said, what is it? I said, you'll have to listen to it, and it was You Really Got Me by the Kinks, and he just couldn't see it at all. He thought it was just a noise.
Devil music.
Yeah, terrible.
Well, you mentioned a radiogram. I've got to say, my mum and dad, or probably my mum rather than my dad, won a radiogram in a competition in a magazine, and I've got to say that was the best piece of furniture we had in the house when I was a kid. Used to have the kind of the radio above, like the record player beneath, and there was a place alongside it where you could stash your LPs and stuff. And it had one of those stacking things for your 45s where you could kind of drop 6 or 7 on at one time, and that was I suppose the equivalent of kind of DJ mixing in those days.
Well, that was state of the art then.
But
and a real tape recorder, and you still record Top of the Pops or Pick of the Pops on a Sunday afternoon with Alan Freeman or someone, and try and miss the intro and the end, and just get the music in the middle.
The annoying DJs talking over the top of the songs. It's shocking.
Talking over the intro. Terrible.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of people buying properties, some properties I notice are like freehold, and other ones are leasehold. I don't really understand the difference. What's the difference between the two then?
Okay. Right. Well, if you buy a freehold property, then you own the house and you own the land. Now, you don't have rights over everything because somebody will be able to mine and extract minerals, and the Crown have got a piece in what's going on. But you own the house, you buy the house, you pay for the house, you get the deeds, it's your house. And that's that. So if you want to leave it to your kids, sell it, whatever, it's yours to do what you want with. You pay taxes on it, you pay your rates, and that's it. With a leasehold house, start with a house. You don't own the house or the land. You own the right to live in it. So what you're doing is you're renting long term. So it's not your house. It's not, yes, it's my house and their land. You own the right to live in the house.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. So, and you'll have to pay a rent to live in it, called a ground rent. Sometimes there is no ground rent, which is sometimes called a peppercorn, which is an old English sort of expression for that. But you might pay a ground rent. I mean, typically in Cramlington, they started out at about £8 or £9 in the 60s, which when you think back then, if you could think back that far, the average guy probably brought home, 12 to £20 a week.
Yeah.
So it was not quite a week's wages, but at the time, it was a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
And we had a 99-year term. Now, this is the thing that's causing all the problems where we are. So that's, anyway, bringing you into the lease situation. If you go to somewhere like Woodlands Park at Wide Open, the houses there were built by JT Bell at the time. Chapel Park was the same, and they had 999-year leases. So that's, as far back as Durham Cathedral, if you think about it.
Yeah.
So, as your house, if your house was going to last that long, which is highly unlikely, your lease would take an awful long time to run out.
You'd be able to make some money back on the visitors.
You could, but
English heritage.
It might be, but in lease terms, then you own the right to live in it. Now, I was recently at Washington Old Hall, where George Washington was built, and I've been before, just a Sunday out trip.
Yeah,
and that was sold on leasehold in 1400 and something. So back then, leasehold was going on. It's not a new thing. It really goes back to William the Conqueror.
Yeah.
Where leases were given out to people. So what you did, you gave them the right to live on the land, but you didn't sell them the land.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm right in my assumption here, but I think I've seen like a growing trend towards more and more of the new developments being leasehold rather than freehold.
Yeah.
And that kind of gives the developer or the landowner, the ability to continue to kind of earn money out of the land long after the property's been sold.
Exactly. And so what happened was, let's take the two builders who primarily built Cramlington. You had William Leach and JT Bell, which later became Bellway.
Yeah.
And what they did was had joint companies which looked after all of these leases.
Yeah.
So let's say you bought a house on Southfield Lee. It was built in 1972-ish.
Yeah.
The lease actually ran from 1964. So when you bought the house, you had a new house, but the lease was 9 years old, 8-9 years old. So what you had was a 90-year lease.
Yeah.
Now, most people didn't really know anything about it. You just went to see the site office, you went to the solicitor that the builder recommended, you signed on the dotted line, and you thought, well, 99 years is a long time, I'll be dead by that, so what am I worried about? But
Yeah.
now when you're trying to sell your house that's only got, scores of years left, 40, 50, 60 years, you can't get a mortgage on it.
Right.
So you've got to buy the freehold.
Right. Okay.
So now those freeholds that were owned by Leach and Bell or their companies, Northern Homes and Estates was one, have now been sold on to Home Ground, Simark, Shenstone, Chancery St James, firms that pop out the woodwork. Now what they do is they're a commodity you can sell and buy. You can sell it over someone's head. You can sell the street, you can sell the estate. So whoever owns the freehold could say, right, it's gone up 20% since I bought it, I'll just flog it on, and someone else can take it over.
Mm-hmm. But at the end of the lease, though, so your 99 years came to an end, you have got the right to apply for a new lease, haven't you?
You can get an extension to the lease, or you can buy a new lease. Yeah, you
Right.
can buy a new lease, but obviously it's going to cost you a lot of money.
All right, okay.
And don't get it free. And any ground rent, you would go to what you call a modern ground rent. So the ground rent would go up from whatever it was to, who knows.
All right, okay. So in terms of the stories, just trying to get a bit of a scale on this. I know I'm a house owner. Well, or a lease owner.
You live in a leasehold house.
I live in a leasehold house in Cramlington, and I'm paying £35 a year to one of those property companies that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'm probably going to be facing the same kind of problem that you're talking about, that,
Yeah.
you know, I might have 40 years left on me, on my lease or so.
Yeah.
So when I come to try and sell me property, you know, I guess I can, because I think I get a letter every year saying, am I interested in buying it? And, you know, they'll give us a price if I pay them £100 or something for, you know, getting their legal people involved to kind of do the work that's necessary for the conveyance and give us a price. But I've got no idea as to what that might cost me.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know whether that'll just cost me 40 years times £35, or whether there's some other kind of way that they work out what that cost is.
Yeah. Well, I think they use the sort of what I would call the think of a number and double it method of valuation, really.
All right, okay.
Because there's no fixed. There's just nothing fixed about it.
Right.
Tell you a little story about that. Right. If you go to the Bees in Cramlington, which is the estate not far from, you know, the sort of Northburn School down that end of town.
Yeah.
I was asked to look at two houses, two different streets on the same estate, pretty well similar, you know, apart from the fact one was painted cream, the other was painted blue.
Yeah.
But 2-bed semis, probably 2 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I went to the one house, and that's the first question: is it freehold or leasehold? Oh, it's leasehold. I said, well, look, if you're going to sell your property, you might have to look at buying the freehold here, because your lease is getting shorter. A lot of buyers wouldn't touch it; they wouldn't get a mortgage on it. So you better get yourself a price. So off he went to get the price. As it happened, I was asked to go and look at another house on the next street, same month I think it was. Asked the same question: is it freehold, is it leasehold? And he said, it's leasehold. Told him the same thing. So anyway, owner number one, call it B1, got a price from his freeholder of £5,600.
Right.
The other guy, B2, was quoted 12,000.
Wow.
Now, exactly the same house, just happened to be with a different company. So how come one can ask 12 and the other can ask 6? Now, it's not like going and buying a pint on the quayside, you know, and go to Wetherspoons and get it cheaper than you can at, you know, the nightclub round the corner.
Mm-hmm.
They can, you know, it's your choice whether you buy the beer in their pub or you don't. But you haven't got any choice when you've got one freeholder to deal with, and they can ask what they like.
Right.
Now, you've got choices there. You can either just pay up, or you can ask other people what they paid, or you can get professional advice. So what we generally do is put anyone like that in touch with a specialist surveyor who will actually value the lease using methods that are set down, and come up with an accurate figure, and then go back to the freeholder and argue that, well, their price is not right, it's worth this much money, and try and negotiate a deal.
Yeah, but who gets the final say? I mean, is there anybody independent who could?
Yeah.
How does that all kind of work?
Well, there's a thing called the leasehold tribunal, which is set up by the government, if you like, to adjudicate on these matters. And these are guys who the guys who sit on the panel, are surveyors, solicitors, whoever who are qualified in this subject and would have a final say. Now, obviously, what they say goes, but it takes a long time and a lot of effort to get to the point where you're actually sitting in front of them. You need a barrister, you need a specialist surveyor, and I think it's a very sort of complicated and expensive job for your average guy. He thinks, oh, I'll just pay up, you know. But why? The more you just give in and pay up, the more they'll charge.
Yeah, I mean, it must be starting to become a really, really big problem for people on some of the, you know, I guess I would still class them as newer estates, you know, that have been built in the 80s and 90s. Where
it is. And again, if you go back to the sort of the way Cramlington's laid out, you've got the original parts of Cramlington: Southfield, Lee, Hall Close, Whiteley. Now we've got one freeholder, I'll not mention the name, who owns a lot of property on that estate. Now, we used to think they were a nightmare outfit, but actually when you look at what they're charging now, they're not too bad. there's new guys coming in who are obviously pushing the envelope as far as they can, and they're the ones who are coming in at 13, 14, 15,000 pounds for a freehold that's probably only worth 5.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know this is something that you feel quite passionately about, and you've kind of set up a bit of a campaign, support group on this.
Again, people think estate agents are out to make a quick buck, but I do actually run this free of charge.
Yeah,
and I've been pushing it for quite a while. Over the last, say, 6 or 7 years, I've managed to get Rip Off Britain up to Cramlington. I've an interview on that show, which was weird. Obviously being on TV, walking up and down the street trying to look sensible with a clipboard, and the rest of it, looking at houses, doing things you normally wouldn't do. I've had the Daily Mail up here. I've managed to get a piece in the Times Saturday a few weeks ago, so I've had the Money Mail onto it. And now what I've done is I've linked my Facebook page up, and the page is called Cramlington Leasehold Information. I've managed to link that up with the National Leasehold Campaign. Now, the National Leasehold Campaign is run by particularly 3 ladies in the northwest of England who feel it have been badly done to by builders who had bought new houses, and they didn't even know what leasehold was. They were just basically asked to sign here, there's the keys to your house, and nothing like this was ever explained to them, and they've ended up with escalating ground rents. They've ended up with covenants and clauses in the lease which prevented them from sometimes even changing a carpet without asking permission and paying a fee. Change a window, paint a front door, can't keep a van on your drive. All these things are put in as restrictive clauses in the lease.
Right.
And obviously it's a way for them to get money because they ask for permission to let you do these things.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a bit of a ticking time bomb. Is there nothing, I'm gathering, bearing in mind the property developments that took place in the 70s and 80s, that this is something which is going to start to gather quite a bit of pace. It's like one of those kind of bits of tumbleweed, or or a snowball coming down the mountain.
It is. So what these people have done, the National Leasehold Campaign, a couple of really sort of passionate girls. One of them's a nurse, actually. She's not a professional in our sense, the property sense, but I think she just felt so bad about what had happened that she's sort of pushed this, and her friends have pushed it, and she's got a national level now, and have actually been to Parliament and protested outside Parliament with all sorts of things, and got a lot of publicity. So the government are actually starting to listen, I think, and there's a law commission thing going on at the moment where they're revisiting freeholds and how it actually works. And in effect, what the builders have done in some cases is they made these houses unsaleable, because the banks have now said, well, I'm sorry, we can't lend on that lease. It's not good. So they've ended up with a house they can't sell.
A bit of a catch-22 for a lot of people, because they want to sell the property and they can't sell the property because they haven't got a long enough lease and they haven't got enough money to buy the lease out.
Exactly, you just end up repossessed, and it's a massive problem.
I mean, you've got something coming up shortly.
We have, yeah. Well, what I've managed to do is that I was asked 3 years ago to join an organisation in Cramlington called the Cramlington Development Trust,
right? And
that's to sort of further Cramlington and help out in various different ways, things to do with the community. And it's a voluntary set up. 6, 7, 8 of us on the board, and what we try to do is come up with things that are going to push Cramlington and help the people. And I brought this subject up at one of the meetings, and I think it sort of hit a chord because a couple of the guys on the board had been affected by it.
Right.
And we took it on as a project. So what I've actually got now is a thing called a Leasehold Roadshow, and it's coming to Cramlington on the 24th of October. So I've got a speaker, Louis Burns, who's from an outfit called Leasehold Solutions, and he's very passionate about this. He's actually liaising with the government at the moment, and he's got specialist surveyors and lawyers who can advise on things like this, and there's going to be a general talk about it and one-to-one sessions on the day, and then taking that forward from there. We'll just see how it works out.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank Cramlington Village Club here as well, because they've let me have the big concert room pretty well all day and all night for 25 quid, which is I think we'll sell a bit of beer, but they were very pleased to help us. So I'll give them a big thanks.
You might need a stiff drink once you got the figures in front of you.
Probably drink a pint or two on that day. Yeah.
All right, okay. Well, I think we'll take a little bit of a break there, but it's really interesting. Probably come back and have a little bit more chat about it. You're listening to Koast Radio. This is the Mind Your Own Business show, and I'm talking to Paul Reynolds, who's the owner of a family-run estate agents in Cramlington called Renown. So definitely kind of worth a visit, because Paul's knowledge of properties in Cramlington and the surrounding areas is absolutely second to none. We've been having quite a bit of a discussion around the problems that many householders in Cramlington, and it'll not just be Cramlington, it'll be, Blythe, Bedlington, Ashington as well. Anybody who's got a leasehold property will be facing kind of similar problems and issues. But this just doesn't affect the houses, does it, Paul?
No. You got a lot of flats. So typically, again, a flat, typical Cramlington flat, you get them in Bowergrange, Bedlington, different places around Killingworth. And they similarly were built in the 70s and early 80s by different builders with a lease, 99 years. Again, it could well be that the lease was 7 or 8 years old when you moved into your shiny new flat, with a ground rent set anything between, 4 quid and 20 quid. So not a lot of money to pay each year. And again, you think, 90 years, that's fine. It'll last longer than I do. But the difference is, you can't easily buy the freehold of a flat. You can't have a freehold flat in England. You can have a freehold flat in Scotland, but you can't have a freehold flat in England. So the government came up with a different thing a few years ago called commonhold, and that was really there to be replace the lease, if you like, with a different form of tenure. Good idea, but the builders really weren't that keen on that because there wasn't any money in it. So the leasehold continues. And that's becoming, more and more of a problem for people. Yeah,
it's quite complex, isn't it? So you have this event that you've got on the 24th of October at Cramlington Village Club. Is that just specifically for people in Cramlington, or if there's somebody listening who's got the same kind of problem, would they be welcome to come along?
Welcome. It could be somebody from West End of Newcastle, somewhere like West End Park. They have the same problems. Bowergrange and Bedlington, Newsham Farm and Blythe. I'm sure a lot of Ashington is leasehold as well. Anyone who bought a house from Leach or Bell, if they check out their paperwork, they'll probably find they're paying ground rent to someone, and that someone may change. It would be Northern Homes and Estates originally, or someone like that, but it won't be now. Thinking back an awful long way in Cramlington, some of the first leasehold houses were those at Klondike, which were the old Colliery Rose.
Yeah.
I don't think you've got any of those in Ashington, which were leasehold, but certainly Cramlington, and they were 99 years from 1894, with a ground rent set at something like 3 shillings and fourpence.
Yeah.
Back in the day, which again, I can't, not that old to remember what you could buy for 3 shillings and fourpence in 1894.
Yeah.
But it's probably a substantial amount of money at the time, and their leases ran out in the 90s, and I know 1 or 2 people who just said, well, you can have the keys back, I'm not paying that, and moved out.
Right, oh dear. The government's got quite a lot of initiatives out to try, and there's still a sort of a movement from the government angle to try and encourage more and more home ownership, and it's not necessarily the same way in terms of the housing market works in Europe or the United States, where rental seems to be more the favoured means. But certainly in the UK, there's a preponderance to support kind of home ownership, and there's some kind of home ownership initiatives, particularly for first-time buyers and the likes.
Yeah. Well, the government came up with a Help to Buy scheme a few years ago, and the idea with this one was it was a sort of equity loan to help people get on the housing ladder, so that the government, if you like, took a stake in it, and there was a certain percentage of the value of the property taken on a different loan on a different way. So what it meant is anybody going for a new property, call it affordable housing, in inverted commas, affordable housing, which has really turned out to be anything but affordable housing, because they were really basically pushed into it because it was the only way they could maybe get a mortgage. If they'd gone in to buy a second-hand house, maybe they couldn't have got the loan. So they see the shiny new house, the government scheme, it's backed by this equity loan, and it's easier to get the money. So they trundle into that one, only to find that in 2 or 3 years down the line, when they're having a family or they're falling out with their partner, they can't get their money back.
Right.
But the government, what they've done is they've made it easier for the builders to push leaseholds, because, again, well, I can't really go for anything else, I'll just buy this one. I've got this expression that everybody in the office laughs at, called a bottle of water in the airport syndrome. Right. And what I mean by that is, you're standing in the airport, there's a bottle of water in front of you and it's £2.50, and you could have got that somewhere else for a tenth of the price, but you just happen to be standing in the airport and you've got no choice but to pay that money.
Yeah.
And if you like, that's being used in my head to push people towards new houses, and it's caused one or two heartaches.
Yeah, I mean that. I don't know whether that's kind of helped the trend as people buy in kind of new houses and they can't sell their old ones, that they end up, moving into the kind of rental market. So they rent out the property that they previously lived in because they cannot move it on and buy a different property.
Well, that happens. But the government again tried to sort of put a spanner in that one a while ago by introducing what they call a stamp duty surcharge. So anyone who buys a house, the stamp duty's got to be paid. Now, if you're a first-time buyer, there's an exemption to give you a little bit of a leg up, so you don't have to find a stamp duty. If you're buying a house but you don't own another house, then you pay the standard rate of stamp duty, which is still a serious amount of money in most cases. But if you own another property, so you can't sell yours, you rent it out, whatever it might be, because you've got a job offer somewhere else, and you need to move on. If you want to do that, then you've got a stamp duty surcharge, which is 3% of the whole of the amount of money you're paying for the house on top of the stamp duty that you would have paid.
All right. Does Renown offer a service to would-be landlords? In terms of the giving them advice on different tenancy types and managing the property?
We do. I can't remember exactly when we started Renown Property Management, which runs alongside Renown Estate Agents. So what we do is have two separate businesses, both in the same building. Yeah. And we do property management. So it's lets and property management. We now have something between 200 and 300 properties that we let for different owners. I mean, the word landlord, I don't really like the word landlord. It implies something else, because if you've only got one house, you're hardly a landlord. Yeah. But those people who, for one reason or other, see property investment as a pension scheme, maybe a guy who's just sort of worked hard, he's got a few quid, he's looked at the bank and he thought, well, I'm getting 1% from the bank, I'm not going to get very far with this one. The endowment's not worth bothering with anymore. What about putting some money into property? And you take a mortgage, you get your rent in, the rent pays the mortgage, and it's a decent investment. And we have lots of people who just got one or two houses who let them out, and they could sell them later on. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of these kind of programs on the telly, which we mentioned a little bit earlier. They seem to give the impression that people can pop along to a property auction, pick up a property that's a little bit run down in poor condition, spend a few grand on it, and make a fortune. Make a fortune. Well, it's not always that way. For everyone that makes a fortune, there's the other one who doesn't see the pitfalls, and you've got to treat it as a sort of sensible business, really, because when you've got someone living in a house that you may own, you have a right to provide them with a functional, clean, tidy, well-maintained house. If the boiler packs in, you've got a bill for a new boiler. If anything goes wrong with the property, you've got to sort it out.
Yeah.
If the shower breaks down and, the water leaks into the downstairs room, that's got to be done. The tenant doesn't pay for it.
Yeah.
Not all tenants are 100% wonderful. Some will, not look after the property very well. Some of them will not pay the rent. Some will move out and leave it in a right mess. So it's not entirely risk-free.
Yeah. Okay. So it's quite a tricky kind of area.
It's got to be managed.
All right. So in terms of what you're finding, Paul, what are the popular types of property? If you get a property coming in, it's gonna fly off the shelf like hotcakes. What are the things that people are out looking for?
It could be anything. If somebody said to me, put a property of the week up, or give a property, star rating, if you like.
Yeah.
It could be a very small flat or a huge detached house. What people now want generally is something that is attractive, clean, well looked after, doesn't need any money spent on it, because I think we've got a lot of people coming through now who aren't called practical as such.
Yeah.
A few years ago, you had an awful lot more tradesmen, shall we say, around who would be able to buy a property and do whatever it needed done, and that's still a smattering of those guys around the joiner who knows the brickie, who knows the plasterer, and they're good. But a lot of people that work in an office, they just want something that's spot on, right colour, right carpet, right colour kitchen units, range cooker, garden all set out with a barbecue. They just want to move in and say, look what I bought.
Yeah.
So the nice house, the house that belongs to someone with good taste, who's got OCD, is the easiest house to sell.
All right. Okay. Is it all kind of location?
That helps a lot.
Yeah.
But amazingly, even things like which way does the garden face?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even think about that. But when you're sitting in your north-facing garden trying to have a barbecue and it's freezing cold, and you go round to the front lawn and it's basking in sunshine, you'll think next time I go, I'm going to get a south-facing garden.
Yeah. Aye. Now you've just put people off buying my house now. So I've got a problem with the lease and the way that the garden faces as well, because mine's exactly well till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I have sun kind of out the back, and then it's.
You can always spot those because they're the ones with the sun patio right in the far corner.
Aye. That's exactly where mine is as well. You see, your knowledge of things in Cramlington is
I've forgotten more than most people do.
Is kind of unbelievable. So you're a pretty busy estate agent.
Yeah, we are. We're pretty busy. Not blowing trumpets or anything, but we sell more houses in Cramlington than anybody else does.
Yeah.
Year on year, we let more houses. A lot of it has to do with contacts and network, because we do know a lot of people, and being local, we see them in the pub, we see them in wherever, the doctor's surgery. You're sitting on a bus and somebody comes and snacks you. Oh, just a man.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about doing such and such. Should I extend my house? Should I do this? Should I do that? Do you think it's worth doing something else? No, I wouldn't do this. Yes, I would do that. And a lot of people come along, and it's not always the sort of profit motive that interests me. It's just trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So, you can meet people whenever you meet them, and they're not going to go, it's always, oh, hi, Paul, how's it going? Thanks for your help. And there's nothing like a little thank you card coming in to say, job well done.
Yeah.
Borrow a box of chocolates.
Has the way you sell properties changed?
Well, it has and it hasn't. The one thing now is the internet. So, again, I was going to town the other week on the upstairs of a bus, sitting behind a young couple who were searching for a house on their whatever it is, iPhone, Galaxy smart whatever phone.
Yeah.
And they were flicking through one of the well-known property portals. I think it was Zoopla or one of those.
Yeah.
And they had one of my houses up on their screen. It was interesting, just sort of earwigging really to see what they were thinking. But
Right.
So a lot of people now are using smart devices to look for properties.
Yeah.
It's very, very important, therefore, to have a good website. It's important to have good descriptions. It's important to have good photographs. So, many cases I'm going to people's houses saying, well, look, do you mind if I come back in a couple of days? Could you move this? Could you shift that? Could you, I've even had people painting walls different colours just to make the property
Yeah.
look more attractive.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, do you find yourself doing that when you go into a place and you can see they always used to say that if you're going to sell your property, have a nice pot of coffee running
Yeah.
and break some bread or something like that, and put the heating on.
Yeah.
Is there things people can do to help their properties?
There are, and it's weird how it works. But let's say that the property's been on the market with another estate agent for 4 months and I haven't sold it.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, can you come along and see what you think? So you go along and you look and you think, well, this is wrong and that's wrong. And so you say to them, well, look, would you mind me being sort of constructively critical here? Is there one or two things I could think of that you maybe would be able to do to help yourself? Yeah, no problem. But when you go into a house for the first time, the line where you sort of start to get a little bit cheeky and upset people is a difficult one to find.
Yeah.
So, in many respects, it's better to say in the first place, look, what about moving this? What about moving that? If you go along and the sort of socks on the radiator and milk bottle on the kitchen bench and the beds aren't made, I don't really want to take the photographs.
Yeah.
I'd rather go back and do it. I mean, one case a while ago, I had a guy lived on his own and he was a bit Mr. Messy.
Yeah.
The beer cans everywhere and the socks on the radiator bit. And I had one of my girls actually go in and just put him right, really, as to what a lady might be looking for in a house that he didn't quite have.
Yeah.
And at the end, ended up going up to one of the shops in the Manor Walks and getting him a new quilt cover and some pillows and getting the place dressed up a little bit.
That's what I call service,
We
Paul.
did sell it.
That is what I call service. Like service with a smile.
Yeah.
Let's kind of refurbish a house while we're here. It's all part of.
Well, why should the homes under the hammer man make the money? If you can do it right in the first place, hopefully. I mean, some places you can't do anything with.
Yeah.
But if it's if it's doable, we'll try and do it.
Okay, that sounds like makes a lot of sense. Just a kind of a shameless plug for Renown estate agents. Can you tell people where it is and how they would get in touch?
Yeah, we're in Smithy Square, which is opposite the Indian restaurant, the Lal Kila, which is good as well. And we're just there. We've got a car park which you can hardly get into because it's full of cars from 8 o'clock in the morning. But we're just there. The building's actually the ex-Co-op Drapery. It was built in 1840 or 1840 something. Back in the day. It's a lovely stone building.
Is that freehold or leasehold?
It is freehold.
All right.
Although, funny enough, I do pay something called a chief rent to Blagden Estates of
right,
£10 a year. So they have a little finger in what I'm doing.
Right.
So we're built on the side of it, actually, did a sort of sympathetic extension using similar stone. So we've now got a bigger building than we first bought way back then. I'll not tell you what we paid for it, but it was... we did okay.
Value for money.
Value for money at the time.
Okay. And I guess kind of finally, just kind of tell us again a little bit about this this event, which is, I guess, outside of your business, but related, in relation to anybody who's having problems with a leasehold.
Yeah. What we're having, it's the 24th of October, which is a Wednesday. We're going to hopefully start at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. If you look on the website, or the Leasehold Solutions website, or on Cramlington Leasehold Information's Facebook page, because we don't have a website, there are a couple of decent little pointers in there. Would be having one-to-one discussions with experts who might be able to help you out. Following on from that, obviously we're going to get an awful lot of enquiries, I would think, which we can handle in-house, and again point people to the relevant experts. We have local experts as well, in law and surveying who can help out. So yeah, hopefully we'll have a good turnout. We can hold a few hundred people in the concert room, so I don't want to be embarrassed with a small turnout. I want everybody to come. If you know anyone who lives in a leasehold property, or you have a leasehold property yourself and you're at all worried or concerned, or would just like to know a little bit more about that, or about what we are doing nationally to try and help people in bad situations, then please come along.
Okay, you sound like you're giving yourself a mountain to climb, which is a nice link to your final song. Which is talk about this one.
Just climb every mountain, and I think I once was in a musical when I was in Pontyland Repertory Society many months ago, And this is a lovely song from that. It's been recorded by many people. I think this one's Shirley Bassett.
It is, yeah, okay.
And here we go.
All right, okay. Thanks once again, Paul Reynolds from Renown Estate Agents in Cramlington, for coming and talking to us this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you.